Those of you that are parents of children and teens know how very important you are to your kids' physical, emotional, relational, and spiritual health. And of course, we all want to have children that are not only as healthy as possible, but that they grow up into healthy adults. What are the best ways to influence our children's nutritional health? We'll learn that today from an expert on Ask Dr. Walt.
Today, our health includes our mind, our body, and our spirit. Separating medical facts from fiction is the key that leads to wise decisions about our health and well-being. Unpacking the latest research is vital. Doing what works helps us live our best lives today. How can we live longer? How can we live healthier? Let's ask Dr. Walt on Liftable TV.
Hi everyone, I'm family physician Dr. Walt Larimore, and I'm delighted you're taking time to join me in my home office as we continue our discussions about some of the essentials of having a highly healthy family. And joining me to explore just how to improve our children's nutrition is a guest you met on a previous show, my friend Sherry Flint. Sherry has an undergraduate degree in health education and a Master of Public Health degree. And she's been a registered dietitian for over 30 years and now manages the Center for Nutritional Excellence at Advent Health in Orlando, Florida. And I was so honored to co-author with Sherry the Amazon.com best-selling book that was Supersized Kids, How to Protect Your Child from the Obesity Threat. Sherry, welcome back to Ask Dr. Walt.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today.
Well, this is our wheelhouse, helping families eat make better nutritional choice. And as individuals begin to think about those New Year resolutions, what sort of changes should they think about in improving not only their, but their children's nutrition?
That is, I think, something that probably adults tend to forget when they're thinking New Year's resolutions is, what about the kids? And I think one of the best things a family can do, eat together, of course, but how do you get your children involved in meal planning, meal prep, going to the grocery store and maybe picking out some fruit or vegetable that they've never tried before. But thinking around those types of things and making resolutions that as a family, this is what we will do, can really help children be much more excited about what you're putting on the table.
You know, when we wrote our book, Supersized Kids, so many years ago, and then did a study actually on it, we found that parents telling kids what to eat didn't really work. It was parents and kids learning together, eating together, shopping together, preparing meals together that really had that impact. Why do you think it is?
I think that children tend to mimic what they see adults do. And I know we talked about that in the book, that children do, research has shown, children do tend to eat more often what they see their parents eating. So if the kids are involved in the meal planning and prep, and then they see the parents enjoying all those healthy foods that just went on the table, they're much more likely to engage in eating those foods also.
You know, it's critical because it's clear that in this country and many other countries around the world, there's an epidemic of childhood overweight and obesity. Now, you work at Advent Health, one of the largest health systems in the country. Just how bad is this epidemic of obesity and overweight among our kids?
Well, I think all you have to do is just go outside and walk around, right? And you see families where the children are obviously overweight, which is very sad because we know how that is going to impact their health, their future life. And, you know, here at Advent Health, we have seen such a need that we actually have our own pediatric obesity program. So we have the adult version and then we have the version for children.
We talk about eating whole foods, plant foods, better foods, good foods. So we talk about proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. In each of those categories, there's both good food and not so good food, correct?
Yes, definitely. So what I think research has really been bearing out over the last quite a few years, but really coming to the attention of pretty much everyone now, is that the less processed foods that you're consuming, the healthier your diet will be, and therefore the healthier you will be. And that holds true for children, that they need to, at a very early age, be in the habit of eating all those healthy foods also. So introducing those types of foods become very important. And most parents are like, well, I gave them broccoli and they spit it out. And we know it can take, 10, 12 times of offering a food to a child before they might even taste it for the first time, let alone even realize they enjoy it. So just offering those foods, giving the child an opportunity to try a lot of different healthy foods over a week, over a month, becomes very important.
Yeah, in our family with Kate and Scott, for example, broccoli. Dad didn't like it, Kate and Scott didn't like it, but Barb experimented with different recipes using it until we found some that we all like. It wasn't that broccoli was the issue. It was spiced or prepared with other foods, with fruits and vegetables, for example. It was again, for our family, finding what worked and what tasted good. A lot of times I get irritated when people say our kids should have 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. What is a serving, and how many fruits and vegetables should our child have daily?
Well, I think the first thing that's important to realize is that children are not adults. Their stomach is not the same size. They actually have more taste buds, so flavors can be very intense to them that taste bland to us. So realizing those kinds of differences. So because a child, their stomach is smaller, maybe a tablespoon of something is a serving size, where for an adult it might be a half cup serving. So I think that's really important to keep in mind, those kinds of things, because it's easy as an adult to think a child should be eating the same portion size I'm eating, but they probably need about half of that for most foods.
Yeah, in fact, for parents who say, well, what is this about proportion size? You can now actually purchase plates that have the little proportions on, that help you and your children learn. When it comes to healthier eating for our families, should we forbid certain foods, or do we just start backing off? What do you recommend?
I think when we start forbidding foods, you tend to get to where that's all you can think about having. If I say do not think of a pink elephant, probably everyone who heard me say that, for a split second, a pink elephant popped up in their mind, right? So we tend to, when we hear don't do something, our brain almost doesn't hear the not part, it just hears the do. So forbidding can make that food, for a lot of kids, much more attractive and appealing. And you're also focusing again on the negative. Why not focus on, oh, here's something you can eat more of, and I want you to eat more of this, and encourage them to do that. And maybe don't mention the fast food meal they have, maybe even several times a day. Pretty soon, those things that parents feel maybe their children shouldn't be eating so often kind of drop off by the wayside, because you're not making a big deal out of that.
Well, and especially if you find other foods they like more.
Yes, right.
Yes. Sugary beverages, big deal in childhood nutrition. How do we begin to back off of that, and why should we?
Yes. So obviously, I think the first thing that comes to mind is, as you're introducing things beyond breast milk or formula to a child, start with the things that aren't sweet, because we know a child, as with adults, our taste buds prefer sweet. So introduce water, introduce the vegetables first, and then the fruits can come a little bit later, because again, they are a little bit sweeter. But really going right back to those very first solid foods that are being introduced, making sure that they maybe have no sugar at all, and then don't go just from the formula or milk right to fruit juices. get the water in there. So their taste buds start developing an appreciation for those flavors.
As our kids are older and some of them are more addicted, not in a real sense, but they're drinking those sodas. How do we help them back off of that huge amount of sugar they get in those?
Well, I think probably the best place to start is you're the parent, set the example. And I've had parents say, and I'll never forget, that the little boy was having some weight issues. The sister did not. So the mother actually said to me, explain to my son why he can't have potato chips, but it is okay for his sister to have them. So I think, again, treating all the kids the same, it's like, here's what it is, but helping them understand, which, when you're younger, you feel invincible that, oh, well, I'm never getting old. I'm never going to be sick. But as they're able to understand what it means to be healthy and how certain things we do or don't do impacts that, then they can start grasping that. And maybe for your children, they really like getting good grades in school. Well, I would approach it, if you drink sugary beverages over water, your brain doesn't get what it needs for you to be able to learn and get good grades. If they enjoy sports, you can let them know those sugary beverages do not hydrate as well as water, and therefore your performance is not going to be what you might want it to be. So finding things that they enjoy doing and relating it to that can be very helpful.
What about fruit juices? What are your recommendations to that in children?
Little fruit juice. And when I say little, what is it, about 6 ounces or less a day? Even for adults, it's recommended really just one little juice box a day. Eating the fruit is a much better choice, because when you're having juice, it's all the natural sugar. Most of the fiber's gone. A lot of the vitamins and minerals got processed out while you were making the juice. Eating the whole package is always the best way to go.
And dairy products, which ones, how much?
So for children, of course, the concern is they're growing, their bones are growing. Should they have dairy? Should they not? And there are many children that are either allergic or they have a lactose intolerance. So knowing other really good calcium sources becomes important. But there is research that shows children can grow up to be very healthy, have very strong bones without dairy, but it is a matter of knowing all those other foods out there that provide calcium and protein and the vitamins and minerals that we would typically get from dairy. So about 3 dairy servings a day is the current recommendation for children. So you don't want to overdo it either.
When it comes to dairy in children, full fat, low fat, no fat, what do y'all recommend?
Yeah, and it depends what source you're looking at as to what recommendation you see. I think that a lot of adult diseases start in childhood, so being very careful about a lot of saturated fat. If a child is having 1 or 2 glasses of whole milk a week, that's not the same as having 3 glasses of whole milk a day. And I know some children who literally, if you let them, could drink a whole gallon of milk in a day because they enjoy it. So I think looking at minimizing, if you're using whole milk, because there is some concern around how is the fat removed from the milk. Now, obviously, children at a really young age, the fat can help with brain development, help with growth spurts. So you also have to keep that in mind, like at what age are they? But just realizing that whatever you maybe are taking out or is being taken out, you may need to replace that elsewhere. Yeah. So healthy fats definitely are important.
Good. Sherry, some of the substitute milks, which aren't really milks, yes. Almond milk, soy milk, that sort of thing. Current recommendations for those in children?
I have not seen anything that says do not use those. I think what is important to keep in mind, and this would hold true for adults, is the calcium. And a lot of those, what we call milk substitutes, so, rice milk, hemp milk, soy milk, almond milk, oat milk, All of those tend to now be fortified to the level of cow's milk. So you can get anywhere from 250 to 300 milligrams of calcium in an 8-ounce serving of those. And there will be other things added. So B12 may be added. There may be some iron added. So again, it's very comparable to what you would be getting from cow's milk.
Yeah. And it's important, isn't it, for when families are eating together, everybody eats the same thing. I don't ask my child to eat something I won't eat, right? I mean, you want to do this as a family.
Yes.
Now,
And that's key.
How do we get our children more interested in healthier choices? What are some of the tips that you have?
Well, I think, just as adults, we have things we like and don't like. Really taking time to understand what your child enjoys eating and what maybe they just don't really like. And always having something on the table that they enjoy. Also, keeping in mind, as I mentioned earlier, at different ages, they are more sensitive to certain tastes. Be aware of that maybe for your child, how you're making a dish is too spicy. It tastes more bland to you, but it could be a little bit overwhelming to your child. And that may be simply why they're not really wanting to try it. Texture can make a difference. So is it they don't like raw foods because of the texture, and so steaming or roasting where it is softer, they might be more accepting of that food. Also, don't forget there could be some allergies going on, so being aware of that. And sometimes allergies really do manifest as a child just not really wanting to eat something because they know they just don't feel good after eating it. So it's really important to keep all that in mind as you're navigating that journey of finding what your child really enjoys eating. And again, encouraging at least try one bite, because how do we know we like something unless we try it? And children are the same way. It's okay to just take one bite and then, okay, I'm going to wait, and next week we're going to try it again. It's important to not just give up the first time they say they don't like something.
Yeah. And that brings us to the common question you and I both get from our patients, and that's my picky eater. Sometimes I'm married to a picky eater. And so what are some tips and tricks for dealing with the picky eaters in families?
So some of the things I just mentioned, if you have a picky eater, especially to the point where maybe they're not growing as they should because they're not really getting the nutrition, of course, get with your pediatrician and find out, is there something more than just what we would think of as a picky eater going on? We do know that children, they can be very sensitive to textures. So finding out, is there maybe an opportunity to meet with even a speech pathologist? Are they having difficulty swallowing some things? Because sometimes there are physical reasons for a child not liking a certain food. Again, I mentioned allergies, and depending on their age, they just know they don't feel so good after eating a food. So again, kind of, navigating through all of that. A lot of times I think with picky eating, it is really just realizing children don't always like something the first time they try it. So not giving up, but not saying to them, oh, you have to eat it. You can't leave the table till you eat it. Don't make a big deal out of it, because the more we make a big deal out of not eating something, the more they tend not to want to eat that. So that becomes very important also. But I think, too, it is also at some point realizing they maybe just don't like the food. I do not like artichokes. I do not like asparagus. I know they're great healthy foods, but for me personally, I don't like them. So, I remember my mom telling me, you have to eat your asparagus. And I thought I'd show her. I dumped a glass of water on it. And I really remember I did end up eating it, even though it had water on it. Totally different era, right? And how we approach that. But realizing that at some point, maybe they just don't like the food, and that's okay. Because I've had parents say, my kids don't eat vegetables. Well, they don't eat broccoli, but they don't mind salad. They don't mind tomatoes. They don't mind baby carrots. So I think really understanding when you say you have a picky eater, what are you really saying too? I mean, that's important to stop and think about that.
I'm laughing because I remember being at a church fellowship social with the kids when they were little, and Kate just said, you have to eat some of your green beans. She goes, I really don't like them. They don't taste good. And said, well, you have to take a bite. And she said, if I do, I think I'll throw up. And I don't know if it was Barbara or I said, well, you have to take a bite. And so she took a bite and she threw up. But as a family doctor, and I think any doctor that takes care of children has the picky eater that comes in. Once we rule out anything wrong going on, I think what we can tell parents is your picky eaters are going to grow up and they're not going to be malnourished. They're going to do well, but finding what they like and what they like is important. By the way, I wanted to go back to calcium because you mentioned that, because very often parents will ask me, what about calcium supplements? And the point is, calcium from food for adults and children is by far the best way to go. There are actually some concerns now about calcium supplements. So once again, getting those vitamins not in a gummy, but in food is a huge deal. We mentioned this early, but I want to give you we've got a couple minutes left. I want to talk about the importance of involving your kids in shopping and preparing meals. What benefits do you see for that?
Well, aside from nutrition, obviously nutrition is the first thing that pops to mind because they are more likely to eat what goes on the table when they're involved. But aside from that, the whole family dynamic can change because now you're doing things together. Children are feeling more a part of the family. They feel more a part of what's going on at the table, which is very important. It's a time to socialize. I even see benefit. They go to the store and you might ask them, hey, look at the little label on the shelf and what's the unit price? And compare two different brands of, let's say, green beans. So what's the better bargain? There's math lessons that can happen when you get the children involved. And talking about the whole process of, baking, what happens from a chemical standpoint. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could get into with your kids, but also it allows their creativity to come out, I think, in certain aspects. And the list goes on and on of all the beneficial things that happens when family, from planning the meal to shopping to prepping to actually consuming the meal, just one benefit after another.
A couple minutes left, Sherry. American Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Family Physicians says, do not put children on diets. It's dangerous. Yeah. What do they mean by that? I bet we've got listeners going, what do you mean don't put a child on a diet?
Right. When we have an overweight child come into the office, we never talk about caloric restriction. So again, the word diet can refer to how you eat, but the word diet typically is defined as restricting how you're eating to lose weight. And a child does not need caloric restriction, even if they're overweight, because they're still growing. And you really could hinder proper development. As you well know, that is a big, big concern for children. So again, the focus then becomes making healthier choices, being more physically active. And as a child grows, we see many, many times they actually then start not necessarily losing weight, but the height and the weight becomes more balanced. And we're not seeing that weight gain continue year after year as you take the focus off of actually dieting so that they are developing properly and put the focus on being healthy from a nutrition aspect, and that here's all these wonderful foods I can enjoy. I can have some treats once in a while, but I can really enjoy all these wonderful foods. I'm moving more. And I think, again, the list goes on and on of the benefits. But yes, the big concern to me is, are you going to in some way damage the growth of a child by restricting their diet?
Yeah. And we should make it clear that there are some children, because of medical conditions, that do need to have a medical diet. We're not talking about that at all. So our book, Supersized Kids, How to Protect Your Child from the Obesity Threat, even though it's over 10 years old, I can't think of any advice in that book that wouldn't be accurate for a family today. Can you?
I cannot. And every now and then I have that same thought, and I think to myself, yeah, we covered that, and that's exactly what we said. Yes.
Well, it was a joy working with you on that book. We're going to show everybody a cover. You can find the book on Amazon.com. If you're worried about family nutrition, I hope that you'll pick that up. Sherry, thanks again for educating us and equipping us and enabling us to help our families be healthier. And my takeaway is I need to grow another foot so I can grow into my weight. Yeah. But blessings and Happy New Year. Hi to all my friends down there at Advent Health.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you. And thanks to each of you for joining me for this episode of Ask Dr. Walt. And I'd love for you to drop by my website and sign up for a free daily email. It's at drwalt.com. That's drwalt.com. And until our next visit, let's eat better. Let's move together towards true health, physically, emotionally, relationally, and spiritually. And dear friend, I pray that you and your family may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. I'm Dr. Walt Larimore. We'll see you next time.